Hello everyone. So after your midterm examination, our first topic for finals is moral theories. So most people are familiar with a common sense morality based on norms such as treat others as you would like to be treated, keep your promises, be fair, and do your best. So most of the people are inclining their morality sa norms na nakikita nila or the society's standard, yung common sense na tinatawag natin. Along with these common sense guides to behavior, there are also values that are generally held to be good. Happiness, honesty, justice, charity, courage, integrity, community, love, knowledge, and freedom. So, the most common sense na behavior na tanggap ng mga tao or it is common among people are these things. Most people are familiar with these ideas, which do not depend on any religion. But common sense principles of morality may be insufficient when considering complex situations. Philosophers have used these ideas to develop moral theories, to help guide behavior and have postulate ethical standards and principles based on them. So we have common sense, right? But we can't use our common sense morality in deeper situations or more complex situations when analyzing whether it is right or wrong, di ba? The first theory under moral theories is called utilitarianism, or it is also known as a theory of consequences. Utilitarianism, first popularized by British philosopher Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill in the 19th century. It is a theory that holds that the best way to make a moral decision is to look at the potential consequences of each available choice. Then, one should pick the option that either does the most to increase happiness or does the least to increase suffering. Utilitarianism, also known as consequentialism, is often summed up as a philosophy of the greatest good for the greatest number. So in utilitarianism, we are considering the maximized happiness or the maximum happiness ang pinipili natin. For example, um, or any action that doesn't produce happiness is morally wrong. In utilitarianism, kapag ang ginagawa mo ay hindi nagre-resulta ng happiness mo, it is not tagged or it is not considered as morally right. So, actions are morally persuaded or permissible if and only if they produce happiness. So, ang mga actions ay nagiging morally right kapag they produce happiness. It is in utilitarianism. So, for example, a doctor has a 5 dosage of a medicine. So, may 5 gamot ang isang doktor. Then, may 6 siya na pasyente. Ang isa doon ay kailangan niya ng 5 gamot, yung gamot na yon para mabuhay. At yung ibang 5 naman na pasyente ng doktor ay kailangan lang nila ng tag-iisa. So, it will be 1:1. But the dilemma on this situation is kailangan kung ibibigay ng doktor ang lahat ng gamot sa isang pasyente, mamamatay yung 5 pasyente, di ba? But if the doctor decided to give the 5 medicines 1:1 to the 5 patients that needed it, mabubuhay yung 5 and mamamatay yung isa na kailangan niya ng 5 gamot, di ba? Here, if we are going to use utilitarianism in this scenario, the doctor will choose saving the 5 patients using the 5 dosage of medicine. Because 5 death will cause more suffering, right? Mas mahirap tanggapin ang 5 mamamatay kaysa isang mamamatay. So, if the doctor chose to save the 5 patients, it increases the happiness in its result, di ba? Yan. So, it maximizes the happiness. In utilitarianism, palaging mong pinipili ang the consequences of your action should result into greater happiness. Yan. Okay? So, nagiging morally right ang isang bagay kapag mas masaya ka doon. That is utilitarianism. Next is the deontology, a duty-based moral philosophy. Deontology is a duty-based moral theory. Deontology states that society needs rules in order to function, and a person can only be called moral to the extent that he abides by those rules. The most famous and eloquent exponent of deontology is generally agreed to be Immanuel Kant. So si Immanuel Kant ang nag ng deontology. Kant coined the following maxim, known as the categorical imperative, to help people decide which action should be governed by rules. Act only according to that maxim, by which you can also will that it would become a universal law. In other words, people should only do things that they would be happy to see everyone do. For example, people shouldn't lie because if everyone lied at all time, then society would collapse. So here, there is a specific rules or may mga code of ethics na tinatawag. In professions kasi, for example, in the profession of teaching, may mga we studied code of ethics. Yun ang sinusunod namin in order to be an effective and efficient teacher. O kaya yun yung mga ginagawa namin para maging morally basta yun yung sinusunod ng bawat profession, yun yung sinusunod ng each profession ang kanilang code of ethics. So, it is being applied in deontology. It is a set of rule na kapag sinunod ng bawat tao ay it is considered moral. And an example is this. So, for example, in pharmacy or ang mga pharmacists, they are not allowed to lend or ipahiram ang kanilang lisensya as pharmacists to other pharmacy na parang sila ang magiging registered pharmacist in that specific pharmacy. That will be against their code of ethics. So, kapag ginawa nila yon, they are against or they are doing it wrong, magiging morally wrong or mag-a-against siya sa code of ethics ng mga pharmacists. Ganon din sa librarianship. Parang ako, librarian ako, and if I'm going to lend or ipapahiram ko ang aking lisensya sa isang school kasi kailangan lang nila ng licensed librarian, and I am actually working here at Global Academy, it would be morally wrong to me because of my code of ethics. Kasi yun yung nakalagay sa code of ethics ko. Bawal kong ipahiram ang aking lisensya sa mga establishments kapag hindi naman talaga ako doon nagtratrabaho. And if I do that, there will be consequences of my actions. They can revoke my license, ganun. And many more. Next is relativism, a theory based on experiences. Moral relativism is a theory which states that no one person's morals are better or worse than any other. Relativists argue that a person's moral code is shaped with the society in which he is raised as well as their culture. And it states that no society is inherently better or worse than any other. Relativism is a moral philosophy that could, therefore, be different depending on where you grow up and what might be right in your society could be very wrong in other person's society. So here in relativism, it only says that people tend to believe that the right moral values are the values that exist in their own culture. So, kung ano yung kinalakihan mong morally right, yun ang magiging right sa'yo, di ba? So, ang mga cultures na nakalakihan natin, ang mga traditions, cultures, and beliefs na nakalakihan natin, those are, yun ang nakikita nating tama, di ba? But, ganun din sa ibang mga cultures. For example, in Middle East, for them, some of the people there exercise they are marrying their cousins, di ba? May mga people that are marrying their cousins. And for them, it is right, di ba? But for us, because it is, hindi yun ang nakalakihan natin na practice, para sa atin mali yun, di ba? But in relativism, we respect each other's moral perspective. Kung tama sa kanila, edi tama sa kanila. Then, kung tama sa atin, edi tama sa atin. It says that, who am I to judge, di ba? So, may mga practices na gano'n na it may be scandalous to other people, parang hindi natin tanggap na gano'n yung ginagawa nila. But, who are we to judge to their practices, di ba? So, it is, it can be connected to relativism. So, ang mga tama sa kanila ay tama sa kanila. Ang mga tama sa atin ay tama sa atin. Ano? Dahil yun yung nakalakihan nila. Next is divine command theory. Divine command theory states that God is the ultimate arbiter of what constitutes morality, and that without God, we have no clear way of telling right from wrong. Divine command theorists therefore believe that the best way to live a moral life is to act in accordance with the scripture. It does not matter what's considered good or bad, but simply what God commands. Those who believe in this theory generally look to the Bible, a religious leader, or someone they have considered to be a prophet in order to make their judgment. This is one of the most controversial moral theory. So, dito, sinusunod natin ang God natin. For Christians, we believe in our God. For other religions, they believe in their Allah or Allah and other sa iba ding religions din. So may kanya-kanya tayong God. And with our own God, we believe that kung tama sa sinasabi ng God natin na tama ang activity na to or ng act na ito, so na perceive din natin na followers na tama ang gawaing iyon, di ba? For example, sa Muslim, they believe that eating pork is wrong, di ba? So they practice that belief because they are associating it to divine command theory. Ayan. Ganon din sa ibang religion. Bawal kumain ng dinuguan. Bawal makipagsayaw. Ano pa? Madami pang bawal, di ba? If the command from the scripture or sa religion na kinabibilangan nyo or natin, sinasabing mali ang mga gawain ito, as a follower of that religion, I am following it because I am part of it. Di ba? Yes. But according to Socrates, he proposed this Utifro problem. Sabi ni Socrates, may question si Socrates kasi parang dito sa Divine Command Theory, nagka-hint siya. Sabi niya, may question si Socrates. Sabi niya, are right actions right because God commands them? Tama ba ang mga bagay na tama? Kasi sinabi ng God, are are right actions commanded by God because it is wrong? Tama ba ang mga kinocommand ba ng God ay tama lahat, di ba? So well, in the Bible kasi, di ba? It says that do not kill. But God commanded Abraham to kill his son in a part of the Bible, di ba? So it conflicts in that idea. Pero hindi naman tinuloy ni Abraham, di ba? It is just a test of faith. So, ayan. So, sinabi ni Socrates na tama ba lahat ng sinasabi ng scriptures? Ganun. Nagiging tama ba ang mga bagay dahil nasa scripture? So, that is the question of Socrates in divine command theory. In virtue ethics naman, or always improve yourself, virtue ethics states that only good people can make good moral decisions. Therefore, the best way to be moral is to constantly seek to improve oneself. Virtue ethicists list a number of qualities that they believe are universal and that all cultures appreciate. They include wisdom, prudence, loyalty, honesty, temperance, bravery, magnanimity, and justice. Virtue ethicists argue that if a person tries his best to embody these traits, then by definition, he will always be in a good position to make moral judgment. So here in virtue ethics, it focuses on being a good person. So if you are a good person with good characteristics, right action will follow to you. So kapag mabuti kang tao sa theory na to, sa virtue ethics, ang mga ginagawa mo or ang mga balak mong gawin will be tagged as morally right. Ayan. Because here, a person is a virtuous. At ano ba ang virtuous? Ang virtuous ay yung alam niya, you know what to do, and you understand what you are doing. For example, in virtue kasi, there is the left and right side. So, the virtue is the center. Hindi ko na nailagay yung illustration dito kasi. Yan. Try to imagine. So, in your center is the virtue. It is called golden mean because it is in its right amount. Balance lang. Not too much and not too little. On your left side, it has the vice deficiency. Kulang. On the right side is the vice excess. Yung sobrang ugali. If you are virtuous, you know what is a balanced character or characteristic. For example, in courage, if you have too little courage, you are cowardice. Pag masyado ka namang courageous, you are reckless. Di ba? So, a virtuous person knows how to balance being a courageous person. Hindi siya, coward is, ano na ang coward sa Filipino kasi? Yung hindi gumagalaw, torpe, or other word for torpe. Basta yung coward. And if you have too much courage, you are reckless. Another character is the honesty. If you have too little honesty, you don't say things, right? But if you have too much honesty, you are brutally honest. Lahat na lang kinokomentan mo. Lahat na lang sinasabi mo, ganon. You don't filter out what you say. But if you are a virtuous person with a characteristic of honesty, alam mo kung ano ang dapat sabihin at hindi dapat sabihin. So, being a virtuous person falls under virtue ethics. If you are a good person with a good characteristic, it will follow your actions. Every actions that you do is morally right. Yan. Diyan, magpo-fall sa virtue ethics. Next, egoism. A theory based on self-interest. Egoism is a moral philosophy that holds that the best way for one to be morally good is to act in accordance with one's self-interest. Egoists hold that we are only really qualified to consider our own well-being, and that attempts to be one's brother's keeper, and are doomed to fail because we can never really know what our peers actually want. Egoists also believe that if everyone acts in their own self-interest, then society is more likely to solve moral dilemmas to the satisfaction of all parties, thereby maximizing overall happiness. So here in egoism, interest mo ang mas pinapahalagahan mo. You don't consider things if it is going to affect other people. Your actions are based sa gusto mong gawin. Ayan. Hindi mo iniisip kung, halimbawa, gusto mong kunin yung gamit ng, or gusto mong kainin yung cake sa ref kahit hindi mo naman cake yon. And because you just want it without considering the feelings of the owner of the cake, you are actually in egoism. Kapag gusto mong gawin, ginagawa mo because you want it to happen. Gusto mo beneficial sa'yo, good sa'yo, ganun. So, it falls under self-interest or egoism. Next. Oh, this is the last moral theory. Natural rights theory or human rights. Natural rights theorists or human rights theorists believe that every person is endowed with certain inalienable rights, such as the right to life, the right to own property, and the right to liberty. Natural rights theorists argue that these rights are self-evident and would exist even if nobody believed in them. The reason that natural right theorists hold these rights as self-evident is that they are essential to the flourish of human happiness and the foundation of civil society. For example, they argue that without the right to own property, there is no incentive to create the property, and therefore, society cannot advance. Based on this theory, human rights are vital to the future of society. So dito naman, pinapahalagahan natin ang the human because it is a human right. And human rights are found in constitutions, right? Every constitutions are enclosed with human rights because you are protecting the citizens or ang mga tao sa country mo. So these are important. So here we are protecting the human against the moral wrongs, yung mga wrong sa paligid, di ba? So sa right to life, here the dilemma here is the pushing of group of people to legalize abortion. So the dilemma is there, right to life. So other group of people are pushing the legalization of abortion and it conflicts to the human right, the right to life. the right of the baby to live, or the fetus to live, or the blood to live, kasi it is under the human right. Diba? So, yung right to liberty naman, dito magfo-fall yung the right to vote, the right to express yourself, freedom of expression. Kaya may mga rally kasi it falls under the right to liberty. Na as a citizen, you have the right to say what you want to say, or you have the right to speak out for yourself. Dito naman sa right to own property, that's why we are entitled to own a piece of land on earth because of this specific human right. These are the basic human theories, and sa number 10 natin na lesson, I'm going to expand it. What are our human rights and what are the conflicts of our existing human rights? Kasi there are a lot of happening right now. Parang sinabi ko nga, the right to life is the conflict of abortion. The right to own property is the conflict of illegal settlers. The right to liberty is the conflict of yung communism. Ganon. So, there are a lot of conflicts in this theory. But it only says that bilang tao may karapatan ka, and if you go against that karapatan, it is morally wrong. Ayan.